Hard Reuben. Oh my God.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hard Reuben's Force-Fed Cafe, episode number 6. This episode features a guest which I was personally super excited to have on, a guy who I've listened to for just about 20 years. Wait, let me back up a little bit. The 90s, it seems to a good many people, were a bad decade for metal. Some consider that grunge was the death of hair metal, and well, metal in general. And frankly, if you subscribe to this thought, I would say to you, just try harder. The 90s came in not just with the whoosh of grunge stomping on hair metal, with its hairspray and ever-expanding spandex waistlines, but the 90s for me was a further evolution of the more aggressive and bludgeoning sounds to come out of Europe and Florida, death metal. With the birth of the 90s, death metal had already left a mark, some bands already legendary, and it too began to evolve. Unwilling to be stuck in an unwavering category, death metal began to revisit earlier inspiration, the melodic sounds of early 80s new wave of British heavy metal. The sweet, sweet sounds of Swedish melodic death metal was born. Replete with dueling twin guitars, haunting melodies, and the neck-breaking cannon fire bass and drums firmly holding on to that bludgeoning death metal sound, one such band to stand above the fray was In Flames. From Gothenburg, Sweden, In Flames quickly found themselves on the top of the pile, continuing to evolve throughout the 2000s and still going strong today. But with all things must come change. Today my guest is former In Flames bassist Peter Ivers, bass player, philanthropist, brewery owner, and all-around great guy. I had an awesome chat with him, probably my favorite yet. Peter really seems to be a guy that I could be friends with. Sit down, have a beer, talk about life, the universe, and everything, and then just listen to lots and lots of tunes. I love talking to him, and I hope you enjoy listening to our chat. Here it is. I've listened to you with In Flames, obviously, for quite a long time. I know that you joined In Flames right after Horacle.
Sure. Yeah.
And that was sort of like a pretty interesting era for the band. The sound was changing, it was evolving, as it was with a lot of bands back in the 90s and early 2000s. People were sort of steering away from like the really dirty vocals in death metal and getting a little bit more into the melody and the clean vocals and things like that. And I know that In Flames was definitely a leader in that, with the Gothenburg sound and things like that. So can you tell me a little bit about what led you to In Flames?
Well, I've been a musician all my life, basically, and we were all friends. Gothenburg is a small city, so we always all hung out all the time, all us musicians in different bands. And I was playing a lot in different bands, different projects, and some of my best friends were people from Dark Tranquillity and In Flames. And I was asked by the singer at one point, just like, our bass player is about to leave. Would you be interested? And I was like, yeah, sure. I'll try it out. I like the music. I like the mix of melody and aggression in the vocals, and I like the twin harmonies and in the guitars. And I said, yeah, let's try it out. And as it happens, it was a perfect fit. We with my style of playing and their way of doing their things. I mean, it was a perfect marriage that lasted almost 20 years. So it was basically just a fluke, being friends, and it was easy to ask me because I was already in the gang, so to speak, and I was free at the moment. I didn't have any other band that I was playing with, and I was intrigued in doing something different because I had been playing a lot of like art rock, a lot of prog, a lot of rock stuff, but I've never played like death metal at that point. So for me, it was perfect.
So it was a good mix of your style and what you'd been doing so far, but also a little bit outside the box for you, and a little bit of a challenge moving forward.
Well, I wouldn't say it's much of a challenge, more of a way for me to express myself musically in a different format.
Sure, absolutely. So when I remember back, I don't remember what year it was, but growing up in the 80s as a teenager, listening to the early days of like, I got into thrash and death metal, and later on it became a variety of all sorts of things. I've had this conversation with some other guests as well about how back in that day, you listen to these bands, and to you they're just these huge rock stars. They're these people that somehow are untouchable, and they must all be millionaires. You have in the back of your head, they must all just be rolling in money. And it was later on that I started to realize that, oh no, when the tour is over, this guy from Testament's going back to a job, and oh, the guy from Overkill does this for a living and tours on the side, and you just sort of start to realize that even though you have these musical idols, these people are just trying to live their life too, right?
Sure, yeah.
And I think one of the things that really started to tweak that for me, that musicians and rock stars are not outside of the normal realm, was when I was reading, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was around the birth of one of your children that you, when you were in Flames, you announced that you wouldn't be participating in a certain leg of the tour because you were going to stay home with the birth of your child for happening.
Yeah.
And I at the time, that was the first time I'd ever heard of anything like that. It was the first time I'd heard of anybody in a band, and the entire band saying, "Yeah, this is the right thing to do." We're proud of our colleagues, birth of their child, and we support them, and this is great, and congratulations. Up until that point, there was sort of this notion that if you were to do anything like that for your own life and your own family, you were being disloyal to the band, and that was, for me, that moment was like a real shift. And now you see stuff like that all the time.
Yeah, I mean, well, it wasn't as simple as that, because I mean, I was the first guy in the band to become a father, and some of the guys had a really hard time understanding, I'd say, how I would choose staying at home over that. But they respected it and supported me anyways. But it wasn't up until they became parents themselves that they actually understood, which is understandable from my end as well, because you can't, if you've never been a parent, it's impossible to understand the love you feel for your child. And so it was a bit of a discussion in the beginning, and not uh, if I was going to do it or anything like that, but it's just basically just understanding and getting a feel for it. But I mean, the further down the line, everybody became parents, and everybody stayed home for different reasons. The only guy who we never really replaced on a sub level was Anders, the singer, of course. But he did stay home. But in that case, we all stayed home when he was home with his kids. So it became kind of acceptable, and I think it was good that we did it, because, like you said, now people do it a lot. I'm not sure if we were pioneers into doing this or anything like that, but I think that's the way it should be. I mean, you only have, your kids are only kids for a certain time in their life, and you should definitely try and be there if you have the option, whatever business you're in.
Mm-hmm. Certainly. And well, for me, it appeared that you were the pioneers in that, because I'm at that time, of course, I was heavily listening to In Flames and a variety of other things, but that was the first time in my understanding that I'd ever seen something like that happen. And now
Yeah.
I could probably mention several that I've seen since then. So I feel that you were probably pioneers in that.
Cool.
The other thing that again, it might be just because I was deeply immersed in the In Flames bubble, but it really seemed, and I think this is a bit more of a European band thing as well. I know that bands are a business, but they're also a family. And the first time I really saw sort of publicly a band talking about the business aspect of what they were doing in a positive light was when In Flames bought the studio that you had been
Sure.
recording in, and I know that there had been some of the media that I saw around that was all about that you guys were really, you were planning the future. It wasn't just about, oh, we're going to record our own albums here, but you were doing this as sort of like a business venture, as a group, as a team that sort of would work itself in perpetuity. Is that sort of what you were thinking with that purchase? Is that?
It's a good question. I mean, we had some smart people around us who pushed us into the right direction when it came to a lot of stuff, and also sometimes in the wrong direction. But I mean, we learned as we went. Um, I mean, we always spent so much money pumping it into different studios, recording records, and as when the time came that this studio was actually up for sale. We talked about it and we said that we should actually do this and we can have it as sort of a kind of a headquarter where we rehearse and we can also have the possibility to bring other bands in to record in a really good studio with a good setup. And we did that for a bunch of years, but unfortunately this whole project cost a little bit more than what we had planned with, and we had to let it go because at the end of it, it was basically our recordings that carried the whole place around because we didn't really have we had an engineer who had his projects there, but it was difficult for us to keep up with all the finances and making it work, if
Mm,
you understand what I mean.
absolutely.
So it didn't end up being such a good idea. But I mean, in theory, it was. I think we should probably have made it a couple of different choices than what we did without going into details too much. But it would work if we had done everything in a little bit better way, I'd say.
Okay. How long did that venture last for you guys?
I think we had it for about 5 years.
Okay.
It was
What?
2 recording cycles and then some, and we had a bunch of bands who was there, and we had some really good engineers coming in as well. But it's expensive to run a studio, and that place especially was really expensive. And also by the end of why we actually left was that they were tearing the whole place down. It's still there today, but in a whole different environment, kind of, and it was just it was time for us. Well, now is the time just to end it, if any. But it was a really fun time. We had our management set up in the studio. We had our own everything that we did. We rehearsed there. We recorded there, but it became too expensive to make it last. That's the truth.
Hmm. Can we talk a little bit about we talked about sort of the change in sound as I don't want it to sound like it was that extreme when I described it the first time. It was an evolving sound with incorporating cleaner vocals in and that sort of thing. Can we talk a little bit about about the changes when Jesper stepped out of the band and what
Sure.
that was like and the evolution of that? And I know that I mean, what happened between you and Jesper and the band was not necessarily the same thing that happened in social media and that sort of thing.
No, I mean it's no, exactly. Yeah, sorry.
And no, that's okay. And I just want to talk a little bit about that because I know that from both he and the band's perspective, there was definitely uh, an effort to just stay friends and stay cordial, even though he had his needs and had to go do his own thing, and you guys had to continue as a band. Um, can you just talk a little bit about that transition for you?
Yeah, I mean it was a very delicate time in our lives. Jesper was one of my closest friends, and he had abuse problems. We found out basically. I mean, we were always drinking and partying and all that stuff, but we all stuck to beers basically, and we never really saw how bad Jesper was. But then one day he just told me as we were in Japan, I need to go home. I can't do this anymore. I need to seek help, and we supported that and that. And he went home, and we finished that. There was in the middle of a long tour. We brought in Niklas Engelin, who's also home right now, but he's an active member of In Flames. Um, and Jesper went home to seek help, but it didn't really work out the way that he wanted it to. So it became a really difficult time in his life, and it became a difficult time in our life. And I don't want to speak too much about his personal problems because
Mm-hmm.
they're his.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I at least try to really, really support him, and in the best possible way that I could. I'm not an expert in these things, and I just tried to be there for my friend. It became really difficult when other people from the past seeked me up to ask me why I wasn't supporting him in his need. And I was like, what? I just came from his place. I just sat there listening to him. But it turned out that when you're in this situation, the memory might not be there all the time. And his experience in this whole thing wasn't the same as mine. He didn't he didn't feel the support,
Hmm.
even though he had it, as far as I'm concerned. So it became really difficult. But I mean, years later, we always kept in touch and we always talked. And years later, we did Syra together, obviously, and things are fine. We're good friends still, even though we don't hang out every day. Um, but I mean, it was a transition, definitely, very, very emotional. One of my best friends has all these problems, and it's really hard to be there for him when he doesn't feel like you're there for him, and it's really hard to help somebody who you don't really know how to help him, and
Yeah.
having Niklas coming in, basically saving the band at that point, if you ask me, with his energy and his guitar playing and his, just spontaneous happiness. He's such a positive guy. That was that was super important that he came in, because he definitely did that. As far as I'm concerned, he really really saved us. And we came in and we did some tours, and Niklas ended up staying in the band, and Jesper decided to leave. Also very very emotional, of course.
Hmm.
But it's really difficult. I wouldn't mind sitting discussing this in the same room with Jesper and you or somebody else, but it's really difficult to say stuff like this because it will always come out a little bit wrong.
Yeah,
You know,
I don't want
I could.
to. I don't.
No, I know that.
Yeah.
I'm just. I tried my best to support him, and I know that he knows that now, and
Yeah.
we're still really good friends, and that's all that matters for me.
Yeah, I think the thing for me is that I agree with you that Nicholas in the band actually gave, like, it was like a breath of fresh air, and not to say, I mean, Jesper's leaving would have been a major blow, because I mean he started the band. It was
Sure.
it was
Yeah. It sucked.
uh, um, and you can see that reflected in social media posts at the time about fans struggling with that. And
Of course.
but I think that you're absolutely right that Nicholas stepped in and really did a great job of filling what probably felt like an unfillable space. So
Yeah,
that was
no, he did. I mean, it was. I did great. I mean, I made a new friend. We all did, and having Niklas in the band for all these years was. I mean, he has an energy level that I've never experienced in anybody else, and he comes in and just fills the whole room with happiness. When he comes, he's an amazingly positive guy.
hmm fantastic. So a few years goes by, couple album cycles happen, and you decide it's time to step out of In Flames. Actually, let me back up. Did you do Syra before or after you stepped out?
I joined before I stepped out,
Okay.
but that's not the reason why I
No, no,
stepped out.
no, not at all.
This was just meant to be a side project. So Syra was kind of in the same at the same time, I
Hmm.
could say.
It seemed from an outsider that you kind of made the leap from In Flames. You sort of not sorry. I don't want to imply that I think they're connected, but
But go ahead, man.
you seem to sort of it all kind of happened at once. You created Odd Island Brewing. You did the side project Syro with Jesper, and you left In Flames. It was like maybe you got to a point and you're like, I need to do something different, and you did a lot
No,
different.
no, that's actually that's very. I mean, to sum it up, yeah. But there was a lot of stuff that led me to that decision. Without, I've been really, really careful saying exactly what happened from my point of view and everything in media, because I know a lot of times it comes out wrong and it becomes like a pissing contest online, and I never wanted that. But basically, the last years for me in Flames, I wasn't really happy. I was always happy playing live up until the very last show. That was fantastic. I really missed doing that. But I mean, there was a lot of situations that made me. I wasn't allowed to express my creativity. I was never really included in the songwriting process.
Mhm.
But I mean, when we did the albums, there was always the five of us in the room. We were always rehearsing the songs, testing the ideas, arranging the songs together. But as far as songwriting credits, there was always I was always excluded. Daniel was always excluded, and it kind of led up to a point where I just got tired of it, and I started writing a lot of music on the side, different music. I mean, some similar music, but a lot of different music, a lot of pop, a lot of rock, a lot of funk, um, kind of opening a really creative side that I've had that I noticed that I had been keeping it bottled up for so long. But once I started writing again, because I always was writing music before I joined In Flames. So once I started writing again, I became aware that I'm not allowed to write here, and that sucks, because I have so many ideas,
Mhm.
and even though I was content with it before, because I was always part of the song process as far as arranging, as far as all that stuff and input here and there. Um, but the more that I wrote on the side, the more I realized that I need to be in a band where I can create. And it became the opposite. I wasn't even allowed to be part of the arrangement on the last record, and that was kind of it for me. I just told the guys like, it's fine. I respect that you want to do this, but this is not how I want to do it. I need to be creative, and by the end, the last record, we were in a house in LA, and the writing process was there. And as soon as it started, I was like, "But I have ideas too." It's like, and I wasn't allowed to express them. And then I just, okay, so I'm here. We're all here. You guys are writing. I'm sitting here listening without. I can't even say yes or no to something, and that doesn't work for me. So I decided to do this record, and then I went on the tour to see how I felt about everything, and I felt really shitty.
Mhm.
I felt excluded. I felt like I wasn't a part of the band anymore, and that made me feel like shit. And having all this other positive stuff on the side, having all this songwriting stuff that I do for other artists and stuff, and having just sitting in the studio with my songwriting partners and just having a good time. Comparing that to sitting in a house in LA, making a new record and not having any input whatsoever, the choice became very, very easy. I can't do this anymore, and I told the guys, I can't do this. I need to be creative, and we discussed this back and forth, and I just said, it's time for me to move on. I really want to do. I have all these other projects. I have a restaurant as well with Björn called 2112, and I have all these songwriting things. I have some anti-bullying projects. I have some bands that I'm jamming with. I have this Odd Island Brewing we've been trying to build up. I have Syra, and everything is so positive except for that little part in the band that kind of started it all for me.
Mhm.
So it was really, really an anti-climax, and I was really, really sad for a long time because I loved every moment of In Flames, but the last parts of it wasn't so much fun, unfortunately. And this is no pissing on anybody left in the band or anything. This is just how I felt it. I needed to be. As soon as I noticed that I had bottled up all my creativity for so many years, as soon as I started writing again and starting, I just realized that if I can't write with the Flames, I don't want to be in the band anymore.
Mhm. I think it's easy to understand that how, like a band is a family, and families fall into patterns with each other, and it's hard to break those patterns. And
Mm-hmm.
that sounds to me exactly what kind of happened with you. Is they got used to doing things, and you sort of became a little more isolated from that, and finally you went, okay, I realize what's happening, and it's time to fix this for myself. So
Sure. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit about Odd Island, if you like. I I was pretty excited to see that you were starting a brewery. I'm a big craft beer fan. So that this is a project between yourself and Daniel Svensson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Daniel and I shared this experience, as throughout all the years, and being the two guys that was never allowed to participate in the creative process, we became really really tight on the side as well. And when he started, just noticed that he started studying a lot of like brewing technique and all that stuff. And I spoke to him a lot about it, and he was like, "What are your plans?" And he told me, it's like I'm going to leave the band, and
Hey gang, you feeling sluggish? Trying to find some energy for the gym or wishing you could shed a few pounds and are struggling to find just the thing to help you? Then check out High on Life Superfoods. High on Life is the leading provider of hemp-based, nutrient-rich supplements intended to instill optimal health to those who wish to perform at the next level. Listen, I'm not just talking here. I use High on Life products myself. Lit is an amazing hemp-based, vegan, raw food blend that helps reset your body's nutrient balance and kickstarts your metabolism to get you going through the day. Use it as a shake, in a smoothie, or try my favorite. Mix it up with some cold coconut milk and cocoa, and voila, Lit ice cream. Do your body a favor, everyone. Go to highonlifesuperfoods.com and enter the code ForceFed10 on checkout to receive 10% off your order. But don't just listen to me. High on Life is used by some of your favorite bands: Suffocation, Trivium, Dark Angel, Testament, Body Count, and many more. These guys know what it means to need to keep up their metal pace. Try it and you will see the difference. I have. highonlifesuperfoods.com. Get it.
no. And so he said, "I'm going to leave the band, and I'd like to start a brewery," because I mean, we've been doing this for most of our adult life, being on the road. None of us really ever had a proper job, so the option was to start something by yourself. I had started a restaurant. I had that going on the side. He wanted to have something as well, so he started brewing at home and learning, and then he kind of became. He went into. He kept going to this one brewery close to his house, asking gazillion questions about this and that, and the guy finally told him, "Do you want to rent some space?" And he said, "Yeah." So he did, and he started brewing. And then I took his beer into my restaurants just to try it, to see what people think, with like no expectations basically. And then I told him, it's like I really enjoy, as he knows, like getting myself into new stuff, being creative in learning how to build up a new business, and using my experiences in stuff I've done in the past to try to do the same, a new business in the same way, very unorthodox way of doing stuff. But I think it's fun. And he said, "Yeah, sure, you know, come along." And we started. Oh, he had already started the company, but it kind of hadn't really done a lot of exposure. And I saw a lot of stuff that I felt that he was lacking and that I could do and help him with. So I joined the brewery in mid 2016, and since then we've been growing a lot, and we have our places. He does all the recipes, he does all the brewing, I do all the marketing and the sales, and all the we talk about everything. We just moved to a bigger place now, so I have an office and he has the whole warehouse where so we can communicate all the time, and we run everything by each other. We talk about what type of beers we should do. We talk about who we should collaborate with to make, like, which restaurant we should make their own beer for, or which distributor we should use, or which beer festivals we should go to. And we do all those decisions together, and it's a lot of fun. It's amazing. We have so much fun. So it kind of hits you once in a while that every day we go to work, or we go to work with doing like another thing. Same thing with music. A hobby that became a living, and it's fantastic.
You go to work every day, but it wasn't really. I mean, when you're on the road all the time, you're always at work.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So Daniel is the actual brewmaster who makes the beer.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing with this whole thing. It's not that we have a bunch of employees and we just say it's our brewery. This is us. We do everything. We went from going on tour, having 12 people on the payroll, doing basically everything, except for playing the actual instrument at showtime, to start this brewery where we have nobody employed and we do everything ourselves, and it's so liberating. It's fantastic. Just working really, really hard, but we're learning as well, and we're having a really good time doing it. And it's on our terms, 100% on our terms. If we don't want to do this, we don't do it. I don't feel like doing this weekend. Okay, that's fine. I'll do it instead, or we just skip it. Whatever. this is the point where we try to do everything that makes us happy and stick to it.
That sounds great. How many countries do you reach?
We've only focused on Sweden. Sold some to Germany and some to Norway and Finland and Denmark, but Sweden is our main priority. We're not. I mean, as far as we're bigger than what we were when we started, but we're still a very very small brewery. So we can as soon as we start exporting, we need to expand again. And so I think we're focusing on Sweden right now.
Yeah.
Once in a while, we do a festival in a different country, and if we get a good deal with a good license importer in a different country where we see a potential, then we can always add some more brewery tanks or fermentation tanks because we built the setup is so it's really easy for us to buy some new tanks and then connect them. Everything's prepared for expanding even more.
So let's talk a little bit about the experience with Syra briefly, if you can. So that was a side project that you decided to do with Jesper.
It was, and it kind of became how should I say? It kind of became the last bit of not the reason, like I said, there's not a reason why I quit, but it became the last thing. Something that I saw on the side that made me happy, and noticing that I wasn't as happy as I would have liked to be with In Flames. So. Syra for me was it was kind of a way to move on, kind of like that girlfriend you have before your next serious one after a huge breakup.
Did you think when you were about to do that, did you have a thought that if I do this, I'm probably going to take the next step and leave In Flames? Did that cross your mind?
No, it wasn't. It was basically the I might be saying too much, but I feel comfortable talking about it now, so I'm going to do it anyways. It was basically the lack of support from the other guys in Flames that made me realize that, okay, I'm going to do this. Because when I was asked by Jesper to do it, I told him, fine, I'll be in. There's two demands I have. And one is that this is, for me, a side project. In Flames is still priority number one. And he said, yeah, that's fine. And number two is that I want to write. I told him, I don't want it to be like In Flames where somebody else writes and I'm not allowed and I'm just sitting here, being frustrated. And he said, that's fine, no problem. So that's kind of how it went. But when they found out because I guess the communication the last year or so wasn't the best within the band. So when they found out, I got a lot of shit for playing with Jesper because he had gone online and saying a lot of negative stuff about In Flames, and which I've already dealt with him because every time he did his rants online, I always told him, it's like, why would you go out and say something like this? And he said, yeah, no, I didn't mean it. That was just stupid, taken out of context and stuff. So from my end, I already dealt with it, but some of the other guys hadn't. So when I joined him in a band and it became official, it wasn't a very positive thing for some of my colleagues in In Flames. Not all of them. And I just said, okay, well, fuck it. This taking that and the lack of creativity and all that stuff. And being as happy as I was doing everything else, I just decided, okay, that's it. That's the last straw, So I was never really, I didn't leave because of that, but the whole reaction of Syra from some of the guys in Flames made me, okay, take that less step.
So the Syra album comes out. It's a great album. I had it on repeat for a while. I'll honestly say it wasn't. You don't know what to expect, but there was a bit of hype around you and Jesper playing again together. So wasn't really sure what that would look like. So I was a little. The sound of the album was a little bit not what I had imagined, but I don't really know what I did imagine. The vocals were it was the vocals really. I was like, oh, I didn't expect that. Okay, let's listen to this. Oh, that's pretty cool.
Most people did it. I know it was two camps. Yeah,
but it was a great album. Now, did you always? I mean, you always intended it to be a side project. So did you intend to do any? I know they've been playing some shows. They're doing some. I think I saw them on a festival or two. Coming up in the next little bit. Was it always meant for you to just be, I'll do the record and then step out, or did it just become too much?
No. I mean, it wasn't. It was supposed to be a side project all the time up until I was within Flames, and then as soon as I left In Flames, it became my main project. But at the same time, I told the guys that I don't really. I've been on the road for such a long time, and now that I actually took the step to leave, I need to focus on all the stuff that made me leave, all the restaurant and the brewery and the songwritings and everything, and I won't be able to participate in tours, and I won't be able to do long, longer than, let's say, 2 weeks or something like that, because I have so much other stuff going on, and they were really cool about that, really, really, supportive. And then when it started coming out, tours started coming and everything, we talked about it, and I said, like, you guys should go. I can't go, but you guys really should go because this is a good tour. It first came up this one with Creator and Sabaton.
Mm-hmm.
I said, this is a great tour. Just go and do it, and we all agreed that, yeah, let's do it. And then we spoke about some stuff about it. One of the reasons, like I said, I had two demands. One of them was that I get to write music, and on the first record they had written about 90% of the record, and but they still let me in to actually put some stuff, some ideas in, and I just go in and make it mine as well. So that was great. But when it came for the second record, we're talking, Jesper said, I want to write this record myself, and I said, that's fine, but then I can't be in this band because I've done this before.
Yeah.
And there was no hard feelings whatsoever. I just told him, it's like, yes, I definitely respect if you want to do that, no problem at all, but I don't want to be in the band anymore then, and that's fine. So we're still super cool friends, everybody there. So that's just, I just felt a little bit, because I'm not a quitter, and I, within 2 years I had quit two bands, and so I felt a little bit kind of like, okay, well, if you would have told me this before, I would have been way clearer with that I will only do this record with not just you guys, but telling people, I'm playing this great record here. But at the same time, maybe he didn't know that this is something that kind of he felt after a while, that I want to write this record myself. No, so it's all good. It's just that I really wanted to go out. I don't know if you saw, I made a video statement where that happened, because I really felt like a quitter. Like I felt like somebody who the maybe I was the problem because I quit another band, and I knew actually how it was in real life. So I just had to go out and say that this is a reason. This was supposed to be a mutual writing project, and as it wasn't, it's all good. But then I need to do something else.
What is that something else?
Well,
What's next for you?
We're writing all the time. I don't know. That's the thing. I'm getting some really cool missions to record bass just on songs that are already done, and I have the studio at home. So I've gotten there's like 3 projects I'm working on right now. One we've gone official with. It's called Fleet Burner. It's a friend of mine from that I met. He was actually out on the road with my brother, who plays in Dark Tranquility, and his name is Kevin Storm, and he asked me to play on his record, and I'm doing that right now. And then I got Mike from Devil Driver sent over some tracks that I'm gonna put bass down on, and another friend from a Swedish band called Corroded. I don't know if you know them. Sent me some stuff, and then I'm writing pop, rock, whatever. It's just I'm writing music that I feel is good, and at the same time as I'm trying to make Odd Island come alive even more, and just I'm just trying to enjoy myself with a bunch of different projects, musical wise, and other businesses, and just having a good time.
Fantastic.
I won't be launching a new band right now because I don't have time for it, and I know it's not gonna happen. But I will be part of new music.
I was curious because earlier in our conversation you talked about getting into some other types of music, and I was sort of wondering if your musical endeavors were going to take you down any of those paths. I mean, it's great that you're doing more metal and playing with those folks. I was just sort of curious if you were veering off into some new territory for yourself and for your fans, like to hear that sort of stuff.
The thing is, I don't know. I mean, it seems a lot of times when I put out a song that I've been a part of, people are very much focused on me not doing metal right now. And I love metal. I absolutely love it, and I will definitely play more metal. But I like other types of music too. And if I'm invited in a fun project, or if I start something myself, making music, it doesn't have to be metal. It has to be good music, and whatever genre that fits that artist or the style that I'm writing in for that moment, whatever will make us happy at that time is what's going to come out. I really don't know. I'm just going to take everything one step at a time, and make sure that if and when I do like a new band or something, that I actually have time to go on the road, that I actually have time to give it 100% attention.
So let's talk a little bit about what I think might be your most important project, and that's United Artists Against Bullying.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
A friend of mine that I didn't know at the time. His name is Paulo Mendonça. He's a funk rock guitar player, singer. He called me up, and I knew who he was, of course, but I didn't know him. Just asked me. This is about 6 years ago, something like that. Well, I have this idea here. He talked about how his son had been bullied in school and how much he hated bullying. And I just said, well, I hate it too. Most normal people do. And what can we do? And well, I have this song idea here. Can we meet and jam? And we did. And we wrote some songs and started this project. But then I was still with In Flames. He was still working on his music, and it kind of became something that we have it here. We'll launch it when we have time to actually expose it, or talk more about it, and maybe travel a little bit and into schools and do some smaller shows here and there. And that time became a while back. We recorded this, released this song called Hero on Spotify.
Mm-hmm.
Just ourselves. Trying to get it out on a label was really difficult because seems like some labels are really afraid to go into this whole charity project thing. They have a budget to look into. They have other ways that they need to think, I imagine, and so we didn't really get any label support. So we just decided to release it ourselves, and all proceeds go to charity. Everything is collected into a charity where we are able to help people out. If somebody needs it. The whole plan is to actually start some sort of foundation, so that if there's a teacher who does some really really important work against bullying, or a whole class or school, or somebody or everybody in an area that does a lot of good work against bullying, should be able to get rewarded financially, or get to do a school trip together or something like that. That's what the money is going to go to, and we're working on that. We're writing more music for that. We have one more song that we want to release soon. I mean, I can speak forever about it. It's super important. I mean, again, going back to what I told you before about being in a house in LA and not being including in the songwriting, that's actually a form of bullying that I didn't really think about then that it was, but it is. There's a lot of, if somebody tells, kids saying each other, you have an ugly shirt, or you can't you can't play soccer right now because we're already 5 here. There's so many different forms of bullying that happens in the world without the one who does actually thinking about this me being mean. Because
Yeah.
I know the guys in the Flames didn't intentionally want to exclude me and make me feel bad when their songwriting was. It was just how they wanted it to be done. But it hurt me a lot, and there's a lot of stuff, a lot of unintentional bullying going on in the world, and we need to start talking on and thinking about what we're saying and what we're doing
Yeah.
more and more.
The thing one of the things that I think about the bullying, and probably not a couple of days goes by before I'm seeing another musician or another actor or another artist of some variety posting a picture of themselves with the Artists United Against Bullying picture, and I'd like to talk a little bit about that. I think one of the things that we all have to work on a little bit is this knowledge, or this information that you just shared about the lateral violence, or the microaggressions, where people aren't necessarily even aware that they are bullying.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
And so we all need, I can look at myself, and I've bullied people quite a bit without even realizing it, just with that sort of those microaggressions, and those sort of sideways comments, or not listening to somebody's ideas, and we all have a lot of personal work that we need to do to get there, and I think that's needs to be part of the conversation, that bullying isn't just about somebody in the schoolyard punching you or pushing you. It's about how we treat each other, and that's what I really like about this campaign you're doing, is that you are bringing some of those smaller bits, those micro bullying things to the fore and making people think about it.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely that's precisely what I meant. I know that that a lot of people don't mean to do what they do. I mean, like you said, I'm positive that I've done some bullying as well without thinking about it. You know, and that's the I don't know what's the most dangerous part. I mean, where the bully is not even aware what they're doing or what he or she is doing, and then of course there is the actual bullying when people are evil. You know, I
Mhm.
read this really horrible thing about 6 months ago. There was this kid who I think it was 13 or 14 years old, and he was bullied in school. And then, as it turned out, the bully had made a song about him, and he released it on SoundCloud. And the song was about how this guy was ugly, fat, an idiot, stupid, faggy. His dad was fag, his mom, all just all mean words and all degrading stuff that you can say. And this kid had done this song and released it on SoundCloud. And then it's just, and he's like was like 13, 14, 15 years old, and he was definitely aware of what he was doing. And I'm so disgusted by that behavior.
Mhm.
This kid, what I mean, what was he thinking? I would have loved to speak to him. It's like, what were you thinking when you did this? Just to see what did you think was going to happen? Did you know that you're doing this so that you can actually just have this other kid just being sad, or did you just felt it was like a fun thing to do? Or I mean, what was going on in this kid's brain? But there are actually some people are evil. There's a lot of people that do this unconsciously as well.
Yeah, there's a part of the bullying conversation that I think is still important. I remember I was bullied quite a lot as a child, and
Yeah. Sorry.
no, I I think in a lot of ways it the experience gave me a lot of lessons, because one of the
Mhm.
things that I found as I was getting older is I learned that the bullies, while I agree with you that some people are just mean and just evil, I did discover that as I got older, some of the people that bullied me were from an environment that they didn't have a choice but to grasp onto that behavior as a survival mechanism. I mean,
Yeah.
their upbringing was just so full of angst and turmoil, and I think that's an important part of the bullying conversation. Is we need to get to
Absolutely. Yeah.
the root of why children who are essentially innocent, in my view, can turn on each other and be so cruel, and what has led them down that path. And I think
Yeah.
a lot of the anti-bullying conversation sometimes I think focuses a little bit too much on the bully as that just evil, if you know what I'm saying.
No, no,
And
I definitely know what you're saying.
yeah,
Yeah.
so
And I
um,
agree.
and that's one of the things. I was bullied, and I can honestly say to you that every one of those people, I have no ill will towards. I forgive them all, and I know after having gotten to know them later in life that it wasn't them speaking. It was their life. It was their home life
Sure. Yeah.
that was coming out, and so I think the work you're doing is tremendous. I'm
Thank
curious
you.
a little bit about how your campaign works. Like, how are you? Do you actively recruit artists to do the selfies with the anti-bullying stuff, or is this just happening naturally?
Um, both I'd say. There are some people who actually just contact me and want to, to take a picture with the logo, because the logo is downloadable on our website um, in a high res that you can print. It's called Artists United Against Bullying.com.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so some people do that. Then I have a really good friend who's a photographer that I gotten to know about 15 years ago or so. His name is Neil Limsang, and he is active in another thing called Rock Out ALS, supporting and trying to raise money towards ALS research. And he became aware of this thing that I'm doing, and then he asked me if he could contribute somehow. And he takes so many pictures and meets so many artists. So I asked him, it's like, would you like to talk to people and see if they would be up to this? Of course, it needs to be people that are actually supporting the project, supporting it. So he's been doing that a lot. So most of the pictures of artists with the logo is his credit, definitely. But I know he takes this really serious as well, because it's really important for me that I don't see a picture of somebody I know is a bully,
Hmm.
because then that picture will be taken down.
Hmm.
It's really important that the people who actually do it are supportive about this project, and want to share and want to help out as well, because I think it's super common, and I've read it lately a lot as well. A lot of people are experiencing exactly what I've been experiencing in bands, being excluded, being some things changed, and all of a sudden you don't get all the information that you were supposed to get. All of a sudden there's like two people in charge instead of, we talk about everything and we do all the decision making together. All of a sudden you're not welcome on all the band meetings. And I just the last week or so I've been reading about artists having this, and it's so common and it's so horrible. Instead of just talking about stuff, instead of just saying like, hey, think it's easier if we have one person in charge talking to the management or whatever, and then we all discuss the decisions together. It seems to be super common that this whole, I don't know what it is, hybris or whatever, that something happens that changes bands that started doing it together because of brotherhoods. And this of course happens so much more, I guess, in schools and in workplaces and everywhere. Just also like a rough dialogue that happens, people talking a certain way that might make people really uncomfortable, some people laughing when you say like a really really harsh joke, but maybe you're not laughing so much inside. So I think it's so important that you actually think, we all think about what we say and what we do. And when we see stuff happening, I mean, just the other day I went to my kid's soccer practice, and I saw some other kid calling names and screaming and stuff. And then we started talking. It was like you said before, there's like, I wonder how his home situation is, wonder why he's acting out like this. Can we have him, instead of, pointing fingers at him and telling him, it's like, you need to stop this, you're a bully, kind of instead just ask him, when you're screaming like that, what do you hope to achieve? Could
Hmm.
you, instead of screaming something negative, just scream something positive and see what happens? And trying to do that, we need to. I mean, I'm not an expert, but I'm just knowing that we need to be more aware. We need to open our eyes, and when we see stuff happening, we actually need to somehow talk about it. And not just punish the bully, but try to figure out why it's happening.
Yeah, you need to stop the bullying,
Of course, yeah.
but you need to understand that it's not necessarily coming from an evil place.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So where can let's direct some people to the social media for Artists United Against Bullying, and Odd Island if you like, and yourself.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
So people can get on United Artists United Against Bullying on Instagram
Yes.
at Artists United Against Bullying. You can get Odd Island at Odd Island Brewing on Instagram.
Yes.
Yourself at Peter Ivers.
Yeah.
And is it also on Facebook and Twitter and that sort of stuff? Or
Facebook, yes. Twitter, some of it, but I mean, we're not super active on Twitter, so I'd say Facebook and Instagram are the two best medias. And to stay tuned for all the updates and everything, and also to reach out. There's always the possibility of sending a DM on Instagram. We will always check those and always answer. It might take some time sometimes, but I always answer.
And yes, you do, and this is why we're having this conversation. And I want to thank
Exactly,
you.
yeah.
I want to
As
thank you very much for your
sometimes
time.
it takes some time.
Yeah, I
No
want.
worries. It's my pleasure, and thank you for listening. It's like I said, I don't know if I spoke too much about this and that here and there, but I feel comfortable talking about stuff. And I haven't talked about the why I left In Flames before, and but now I'm doing it, and I need to stress that this is my experience. This is not 100% necessarily how it was, because it's my experience. The other guys might have a different choice of words for stuff, and that's fine.
Yeah, and I don't think they need to worry. They've got a new album. They're doing great. They're doing just fine. So I don't think that. I don't think.
No.
Thank you so much for your time, Peter. I appreciate
Thank
it very
you.
much.
Appreciate it too.
You.
Nice talking to you.
You as well.
Oh, wow. I had such a good time having that conversation. He is a great guy. Thanks very much, everybody, for tuning in. Please subscribe wherever you check out your podcasts and feel free to leave a review. I'm open to suggestions and always looking for some feedback. Next week, check out my conversation with Jesse Mathewson of two-time Juno winners Ken Mode. We had a chat about what they do when they're not on tour and what it's like to win and what it's like not to win at the Juno Awards. See you next time.